Our goal is to give them an understanding of history from start to finish. It's Satan's psyops from Eden to Armageddon, and most people don't understand the connection. The idea is simply this, that truly there's nothing new under the sun. And when it was so effective the first time for Satan to promise Adam and Eve that if they just would eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they would become like God. Right now, everybody in the billionaire world and in the prolonging life forever mode is basically talking about there's nothing that will be kept from them. So we have what I call technological Babylon, that's one of my words I coined a number of years ago, that's taking place. And just as God came down to scramble the languages, there's going to be an event. I don't know what, but I think that we can take our cue from the past. There will be an event. It's going to scramble everything up. It's interesting because, as you know, Derek, they were talking about AI developing a language that they could not interpret, so the machines started talking to themselves. And it's my contention that as AIs and robotics and sex bots and everything else become more and more, how should I say this, human-like by the efforts to replace humans, that we're in the period of the Terminators. We are in the period of, beyond Arnold Schwarzenegger coming from the future to do whatever he's going to do. I think it's going to be a powerful, powerful thing. And I think God is literally, I'm going to call this a Queen Esther moment for such a time like this, because as the days grow darker, people need to understand the power that's available to them through the living God that the pulpits, and you and I call them the pulpiteers, have robbed from the people. So, Derek, aren't you surprised, and probably not surprised, but aren't you, I don't know what word to use, amazed maybe, at how many headlines now are breaking forth about the ancient this, ancient that? Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really drove my research for the book. I've always had an interest in archaeology, paleontology. As a kid, I was fascinated with dinosaurs and ancient man and so forth. And it wasn't until my 30s, and Sharon can testify to this, we had a very interesting and heated discussion after we got married. The Holy Spirit's been working on me for a long time. After we got married, I was still convinced that you could syncretize Darwinian evolution with the Bible. And, of course, that doesn't make any sense, because if there's no sin from which to fall, if death has always been with us, then, what do we need to be redeemed from? You've got to have the foundation for the house before you can build the house on it. And if there's no original creation from which we fell, then Jesus' death on the cross is nothing more than a sad chapter in human history, instead of the pivot on which all of history hinges. So the book, The Great Inception, really dives into secular archaeology, paleontology, for the evidence to show that the Bible is an accurate record of this long war that's been taking place since creation between the old gods, who are real, and the Creator, who created them. So these small g gods, if you're more comfortable thinking of them as fallen angels, that's fine, but just be advised that in the Bible, God calls them gods. So I'm on safe theological ground there. The apostles and prophets knew that these things were real. These were the gods of the pagan nations around ancient Israel. There are episodes that take place in the Bible that really make a lot more sense when you understand what was going on in the struggle in the supernatural realm. What was going on with between Yahweh and his chosen people and these rebellious gods who were trying to destroy God's chosen people. His allotted heritage is what the Bible calls them. And the more I dug into it, the more I realized that there's more stuff there, which is fantastic, because it makes for, because I love to talk in front of people, so it gives me a lot of stuff to say. So, but more than that, it makes the Bible come alive when you understand that the Red Sea crossing was not God just trying to show off, fancy special effects. The confrontation between Elijah and the priests and prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel was not so God could show off with the fire from heaven. Jesus' transfiguration, where he was transformed into a being of light on Mount Hermon, was chosen at a specific point in history and at a very specific geographic location to send a message into the spirit realm, to these fallen angels, these small g gods. So all of that is just woven through all of history. But the thing is, these entities are still at work in the world today. And the follow-up book to The Great Inception is going to track a number of these gods who I think are specifically forming up for the final confrontation, the Battle of Armageddon, which I explain why in the Great Inception, why that's going to take place at Jerusalem for Mount Zion, the Temple Mount, rather than at the Valley of Megiddo, as many of us have been taught. I think that what we're seeing in the world today in the form of Islam is the supernatural equivalent of a corporate merger, where a number of entities that have rebelled against God and who are named in the Bible have essentially joined forces, and in so doing, they've created a religion that, at its current rate of growth, will surpass Christianity as the religion with the most adherents on planet Earth within the next 50 years or so. And I think that there are some very specific things that we can learn from the history of these gods about what is to come. One of the things that I stumbled onto, and this is what I'm just going to tease a little bit of what I'll bring to the conference in Branson, because I don't want to give too much away too soon. I've not really talked about it publicly much because in the back of my mind I knew that this conference was coming, but it really startled me in researching the ancient world. I'm talking the ancient pre-flood world, and specifically in the ancient Near East. When I say ancient Near East, I'm talking about today what we would see on the map as Iraq, Kuwait, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Israel. Okay? That in that place, in that part of the world, secular scholars who normally don't want to touch the subject of cranial deformation, and by that I mean those deformed skulls that you've heard about from, well, Steve and Timothy Alberino, Tom Horn, L.A. Marzulli. Apparently, the pre-flood world in the ancient Near East, according to secular scholars, was ground zero for this phenomenon. Because when you go back far enough in history, back to the time before the flood, it appears that this was a universal thing. It wasn't one social group, one like social caste, like the chiefs or the priests who were allowed to have these pointy heads. It was everybody in the ancient world, from Jericho to what today would be around Aleppo, Syria, all the way over to western Iran, and specifically one specific point in southeastern Iraq that seems to be the starting point for all of this. So it was surprising to me to find out that this was a bigger thing the farther back we go in history than I ever realized. So I'll speculate some as to why I think people were engaging in this behavior before they invented writing. And apparently for a period, according to the secular archaeologists, for a period of about 6,000 years, everybody was binding up little Junior's head to turn it into a cone head. Why were they doing that? What were they trying to emulate? Well, we'll talk about that. We'll speculate on that. It appears that practice went away after the flood, interestingly enough. And then I'll talk about the Watchers and why the Watchers are significant, especially to a certain group of people that the Israelites had to push out of the Holy Land when they crossed the Jordan. There was one particular group of people who, again, basing this on secular research and secular scholars, mainstream, peer-reviewed scholars, pulling papers from academic journals, and these are scholars who don't have a biblical axe to grind, which is why they're not seeing the whole picture. It appears that there was a group of people who believed that they were descended from and held rituals to summon the spirits of the Watchers to bless and empower their kings. So I think that has a lot to do with why God, in the book of Joshua in particular, declared certain people in the Holy Land as Karem. I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but it's a Hebrew word that means devoted to destruction. God is not a genocidal maniac, as some skeptics would like to believe. There are just some people in this world who are so sold out to the enemy that God said these people and everything that they own are dedicated to destruction, devoted to destruction, destroy everything, don't even take any spoil. When you destroy this city and burn it to the ground, don't loot it, just burn everything. It's all contaminated. It's all tainted. This is a word that still is known today in Arabic languages. So this is not a concept that was unique to the God of the Bible, but only the God of the Bible has the right to apply it to anyone. And again, the people group that he applied it to in his orders to Joshua, and even down as far as King Saul, there were certain people who were so sold out to the enemy that God declared them harem. And again, there is a correlation between the old gods, the watchers, the angels who kept not their first estate, the angels who are chained in gloomy darkness until the judgment, and these people that the Israelites had to destroy. So when they're coming back, because those old gods, and there's a lot of occult groups out there that are looking forward to restoring that golden age, and there is a day coming when they will return.